Woo! Welcome back, warriors. We are so excited that you are back with us.
Yippee!
I love you. You're the best. Anyway, we have a great one for you all today. We are going to be talking a little bit about what anxiety made us do and preoccupied thoughts.
Yeah, my anxiety made me do it, or my preoccupied thoughts made me do it. This is like one of my most favorite. I think I say this every week. It's my favorite topic. That's why we've created a podcast so we can talk about our favorite things.
It's all about us, guys. It's all about us.
Yep, our favorite topics. But this one really ties into attachment styles and anxious attachment, which we've dabbled in, over the last few episodes. And how when our attachment style, if we have anxious attachment, is activated, it can cause a lot of preoccupied thoughts that cause us to have behaviors that might not really match our baseline norm.
Right. And I agree that I have a lot of these preoccupied thoughts. And I'm also reading your favorite book, Attached. We've been talking a lot about it back and forth here on the pod, but just generally. And before we started recording, I said to you, I'm like halfway through this book. I'm really digging it. And in thinking about the relationships that I have with most people, specifically my husband, Adam, I score on like the secure attachment. But when I'm thinking of it overall, I'm like somewhere middle of the road between being an anxious attachment style and being a secure attachment style. So it's just been super cool and interesting to read about. Like, how it kind of helps me frame what I see and hear from other people too, in relation to what I'm going through. It's been really fun.
Yes. Yeah. That book helped me so much, right? Because I am like a, very definite anxious attachment, but mindfulness and yoga and empowerment all help me kind of navigate that world. But when I learned about that, I was able to stop dating the avoidant attachment, which would just always send me into like a tailspin of chaos, and really be able to, find a secure, like Dan. But the other thing that it really did was it gave me this lens of seeing how all other people interact and having a lot more compassion and empathy for those other anxious attachments out there, who just so much want to connect, but maybe don't understand how to do it.
Yeah, I really feel that too, because it's like, not that I was judging people for the way they were sort of speaking or reacting or acting either in my presence or towards me, but having sort of this newly equipped way of thinking about people's styles and the way that they approach relationships and communication. And it's just been helpful for me to not only have more self-compassion for whatever I'm dealing with in terms of my own preoccupied thoughts around this person or situation, but also I can kind of have a better grasp on what they're probably going through.
Right.
And why they are the way they are sometimes.
Right. What's really interesting is with the avoidant and the anxious, the deep fear is rejection and abandonment. But in the anxious, they learn to navigate that or cope with that by strongly attaching to someone else. And the avoidant learns that they need to be as independent as possible. And so, all behaviors communicating unmet needs. And some of those needs or those fears are, around interpersonal relationships and connecting with people.
So since I know you have the book like right there, just like tell everybody the exact name. It's called Attached, but like give everyone the lowdown on like the author, and if anyone's interested in learning about attachment styles.
Or if you need help dating, either one really helps. So the book is Attached, and underneath it says The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. And the authors are Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller.
Yay.
And I even have like a little quote in it that kind of aligns with what we're going to talk about, because part of preoccupied thoughts is when we're activated. And so I found this quote that said, once activated, they, meaning people with anxious attachment, are often consumed with thoughts that have a single purpose: to reestablish closeness with their partner. And these thoughts are called activating strategies. Activating strategies are any thoughts or feelings that compel you to get close physically or emotionally to your partner. And once they respond to you in a way that reestablishes security, you can revert back to your calm, normal self. And I really like that as we go into this because there's nothing wrong with you if you need support from someone else to be soothed. If you are having, if you're activated and the only way to come down from that is closeness with someone else and that helps you feel calm, I think that like gives us permission to be able to communicate our needs more.
Yeah, completely. I love that quote too. And I think what's special about the whole concept is that it's not just about, I love that you brought up about dating because I know that's how you found the book. It was
Yes.
recommended to you because of your previous relationships and a friend of yours thought you would benefit from the
Good
book.
memory.
And you surely have, as being your friend and knowing you for a while and seeing you in your secure relationship now is such a joy to witness. But it's really about relationships with anybody. And so it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
just have to be about romantic partners. Because when you recommended the book to me, I've been in a secure relationship for 21 years with the
Hmm.
same person. And I was just like, maybe this isn't going to be helpful or interesting to me, but it's quite the opposite. So just
Yeah.
know, for anyone that's interested in this idea, it's for anybody who's
Yeah.
curious about the
Totally.
way they attach to others.
Friends, family, bosses,
Yeah.
colleagues. Like, yeah, it gives a lot of insight.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
right.
So, would you like to begin? I'd love to hear your preoccupied stories.
Yeah. Tell me some preoccupied stories.
Tell
This
me when
lady has
your
a lot.
mind goes nuts.
So pretty much every moment of every day. I'm like sort of kidding when I say that. But not completely kidding if I'm being
Nope.
honest. So I would describe my preoccupied thoughts as like being related to routine and rituals.
Mhm.
And that's like surrounding more non-threatening situations, say in my environment, but then also a little bit more seriously, like when I'm having conversations with loved ones. So, like an example of a preoccupied thought in my environment is things like in my space. I like my space to feel and look a certain way. Otherwise, I can feel kind of anxious and I feel myself a little bit triggered. Like, I like the pillows on my basement couch to be arranged in a very specific way. Unfolded blankets stress me out. And the biggest one is my bed not being made, or our bed, I should say. And I am by no means, I want to make very clear, a neat freak at all. I am not a neat freak. It's the opposite in many ways, but there's something about symmetry and things being folded and
Mm.
and sort of like organized when it comes to, clearly it's about bedding and pillows and
Yeah.
blankets.
Yeah.
And just putting that together, like a lot of my stuff has to do with like my comfort environments, right? Like the couch, my
Mhm.
blanket, my bed. Um, and it can sometimes keep me from being able to focus
Yeah.
or get through my day. For example, like I'm usually up and at him before Adam is. And
Mhm.
so, like, if I leave the house before he's even awake to get up for his day, I know the bed's not going to be made when I get home. And I'm okay with that, right? Because that's the way that goes. I can't make a bed with him still in it. Although sometimes that's. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just tuck my side in just a little bit. But no, 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 I won't do that to him. He needs free reign of the bed while I'm not in it. But then other times, but then when I get home, I'm making the bed, right? Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what time of the day it is. I can get home at 5 p.m. and that bed's getting made because
Wow.
I want it to be made. It just makes me
Yeah.
feel better knowing it's made. Um, yeah. So that's what I would call like sort of a non-threatening preoccupied
Yeah.
thought
Can
where
I
like
can I ask like what your mind does like when you're like the bed's not made?
it's different every time, but what's consistent is that I just keep picturing the bed in my mind. I
Mm.
picture the unmade bed, just
Yeah.
like the scrunching of the blankets and
Mhm.
like the pillows not being on the bed where they would normally sit, and potentially maybe that something fell on the floor. Like it's just like my thoughts go to. And I think part of it, I think, if I'm digging a little bit deeper into this non-deep situation, is that as a kid, my parents made their bed. Like it was a thing in my
Mhm.
house growing up. And it was sort of correlated to like a made bed is like a kept life. And you're setting yourself up for a great day or success if your bed is made. And so in my head, it was kind of like, oh no, my day is going to go down the
Yeah.
toilet now, or my day may
Yeah.
not be as good. And like, I'm putting that there, of course.
Right.
That's probably, hopefully not the case. Although maybe subconsciously now I'm not my best self, or I'm not bringing the, my great, calm, even energy to my work or whatever,
Mhm.
even subconsciously. So it's interesting the way these sort of like non-threatening ones can sometimes like, there's like layers to be peeled back
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, because I didn't even occur to me until you asked. And then the other one that I experience is more of like my interactions with loved ones. And so, like, if I'm on the phone with Adam or my mom or someone, I very much feel like I want to say I love you to that person.
Mhm.
And if I feel rushed off the phone, or if I'm in a rush and I get off the phone quick, or even if it almost never happens when I'm in person with people, because then I'm just more present, period. But if
Yeah.
I'm on the phone, I feel more rushy, or um and then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't say I love you to that person." And so I freak out about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And what winds up going through my mind is like, what if this person forgets that I love them? Right? Which is like, of
Yeah.
course, that's not the case in my very stable, secure relationships. It's like, I
Yeah.
know this person knows I love them. And the fact that I didn't say it this one time doesn't negate that. But
Right.
sometimes in my mind, it's like, it doesn't only go to, oh, I forgot to say it. So maybe they will forget, which again sounds so crazy. But
Yeah.
my mind also goes to, what if they start to feel the opposite, that I don't love them, or so, or you know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
and so, and this has been a thing of mine since I was a kid. Everything stems
Yeah.
from when I was a kid. I have a lot more control over it now. I definitely have a lot more strategies that I use if
Mhm.
and when these happen, and or these situations happen, more so about the interpersonal relationship stuff, because my bed not being made, or like a blanket not being folded, those are all like little environmental ticks that I have.
Mhm.
But it's more about like thinking about my loved ones and making sure in my mind that they know I love them, and
Yeah.
just reminding myself I know that they know that I love them. And so
Right.
what I practice sometimes is what I like to call empowering reminders, which is basically reflective self-talk. Saying
Mhm.
things to myself like, I know that my husband knows I love him because of our secure relationship and consistency in expressing that love. And not saying it in this moment doesn't change that. Another one is like, going back to the non threatening environmental one, is saying to myself, your unmade bed is not a reflection of the kind of person you
Mm.
are. Your students, your work, your family need you more than that bed needs making. And the bed's not going anywhere, and you could always
Yeah.
make it later.
Yeah.
Um, and then, just some of my usual centering breaths, anchor phrases while I'm
Mhm.
breathing, such as, I breathe in, I give love, I breathe out, I am loved. Or I breathe in, I am here, I breathe out, I am whole.
Yeah.
Like those two are some of my go tos, but
Wow.
yeah.
I love this, and there's like, I mean, of course, a million things I want to say. But the first thing is, when you talk about the environment, especially like the bedding and stuff, right? What I think like I'm hearing in that is like that bothers you less, right?
Yeah,
But
for sure.
also that's something you have control over.
Mm,
And you don't have control over how other people receive you or what they think of you. And so, of course, that could be more activating, right? When you don't end the conversation the way you want it. And then it's like, what's going to happen now?
right. What if I don't see this person for a while again? What if something happens to me or
Mm-hmm.
them? Would they have remembered that I love them? Which it's like,
Right.
and I'm talking about people that are in my immediate family, my husband of a very long time. I don't get these feelings if I forget to say it to a friend, or
Yeah.
someone who I may still have a very strong relationship with, but not the same, just not the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's more about those really, really special, important
Right.
figures. But
Yeah. And I thought you were going to go and then I realized you weren't. But when you were talking about with like those close family and friends, I thought it was going to go to like, if I don't say I love them and then I never see them again. Right. But it was like, if I don't say I love them and then they forget that I love them, they don't remember I love them, they think the opposite, that I don't love
right.
them. And for me, it's like, oh, that's so like that's not where my mind would go, right? We
Mm.
might have preoccupied thoughts around others, but it's interesting where our mind goes around those thoughts.
That definitely creeps in sometimes too, though.
Okay.
Like if that's the last time you see this person, but I try not to let myself. Oh well, I mean, my headspace goes there sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's more about the in the moment. It's like I just want to make sure everyone that I love knows I love them, and I
Yeah.
want to verbalize that to
Yeah.
them, and that makes me feel good and happy and assured myself.
Yeah.
Going back to like the reassurance piece with some of the anxious attachment,
Mhm.
I kind of feel like, yeah, there are times when I need the reassurance, but I feel the need to reassure sometimes too.
Yes.
Not that these people, again, I don't believe that any of these people I'm talking about would ever for a single second think, oh no, Margot doesn't love me because she didn't say I love you at the end of our call.
Right. Right.
But it will sit on my mind. It weighs on my heart for a little bit
Mhm.
afterwards. But like I said, those tools, my practices allow me to continue to function and move
Yes.
through my work, my day, and know like there are things like you just said, thank you for saying that. Like I can't control how other people are going to react or probably not react to my lack of phrase or words to them. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, like, preoccupied thoughts don't have to make sense, right? Like,
mm,
they don't they're we are like, "What's wrong with us? Why is our mind doing this?" But they just don't make sense. They're just there for us to live with.
yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that because I think it's a really important reminder for everyone that sometimes we're just going to think stuff and it doesn't have to have a rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with us for having those thoughts.
Right.
And only if, and look, we're not doctors, we're not therapists, we're not clinical psychologists here. And if there's no, if there are things that we say that we do that work for us that don't work for you, and there this podcast is not a reason to say not see a doctor or a therapist,
Yeah.
right? If you're unable to move through your day because of your preoccupied thoughts, if you're trying a whole bunch of different strategies and they're not serving you and you're really struggling, go talk to someone about
Yeah.
that. Talk to a professional. But so I just want to throw that on there.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, therapy helped me. Therapy helped me get to a place where like I learned about my anxiety and I learned the beginning point of navigating and coping with it. And then from that foundation, I was able to really grow and find the things that felt right for me.
yeah, that's amazing. Let's hear some Abby preoccupation.
Oh man. I feel like my life has been one big load of preoccupied thoughts. Like it's a lot. Um so there's like I mean one there's so many different stories, right? But it's kind of like you. It's like I can just give a generalized thing and a lot of my preoccupied thoughts stemmed from dating. Um but I'll start with like the environment. Because like you gave like a low level and high level one, right? And so for me, the low level one is my mind gets extremely preoccupied about locked doors, right? So I know I lock a door. I'll even tell myself, I'm locking the door. Then I need to like jiggle the doorknob and try to open it and close it a few times to prove to myself that it's locked. And even after all of that, I'll be like leaving the house with Dan and I'll be like, Dan, the door's locked, right? Just say it's locked. Like that is something where my mind can't let that go. And there's like nothing else, right? It's like literally door locking. And like if I straighten my hair, it's like I know I unplugged the straightener, but did I unplug the straightener?
Mm.
Yeah. So that's like my low level one. But the
But
like
those are about safety too, right? It's interesting because it's like you described it as low level, right? Just going back to like when it's so interesting when we hear each other, right? And I
yes.
feel like those things sound important to me. Like not having a straightener
Mm.
that's like, or having a straightener be unplugged before you leave the
Right.
house for several hours
Right.
or even 20 minutes, and not having a locked door could be
Yes.
intruders or
Right.
danger.
Right. Is there a threat? Is there a threat? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's like, even when I know I lock the door, I still need to like double check it or triple check or quadruple check. And I still need to like turn to Dan sometimes, like at night when we lock the doors and stuff. And I'm like, the doors are locked, right? Just say yes. Just say it. So
I don't have to get out of bed and check.
I mean, there's times where I know it's locked and I'll still get out of bed to check it, right? But only so it's like, okay, mind, now we can rest. Now we know we're safe. But yeah, it all stems from safety. And even in the dating world, it was all about threats and safety. Because again, like I said before, like for anxious attachments, our biggest fear is being rejected and abandoned. So we're constantly looking for signs of someone that's going to reject and or abandon us. And so, one of my like experiences, well, actually multiple experiences around dating where I tended to date avoidant men. And so avoidant men are typically not emotionally available. And the moment that you start to get close or intimate, they pull away. And so when they start to pull away is when an anxious attachment gets activated, right? And so you're like, oh my God, or I'm like, oh my gosh, they're leaving me and abandoning me. They don't like me anymore, right? And then at some point they come back but it could be days, right? And then that soothes the system. And so my experience with the preoccupied thoughts was when I would be dating, there would be times where I would call someone and they wouldn't call me back for a long time, like a day, 2 days, or I would text someone and they wouldn't text me back. And in those moments, what would happen is my mind couldn't stop overanalyzing every bit of it. It was nonstop thinking about that person. What did I do wrong? It's overthinking what I did. Did I scare them away? Are they okay? And it's just like nonstop. And then in the good times when they would respond or whatever, but they weren't physically present, my behavior was like wanting to talk about them to my friends and constantly like bringing up my crush and saying all the amazing things about them, and over analyzing every bit and piece of like conversation they ever said to me. If they held my hand, what does that mean? Do they like me? Do they not like me? Right. But it's like, it's exhausting. The overthinking of it is just absolutely exhausting. And what I realize now, what I obviously didn't know then because I didn't even know about preoccupied thoughts, but what I realize now is that I interpreted my preoccupied thoughts as falling in love with someone or as loving them or as liking them. And my preoccupied thoughts were actually a red flag that this person wasn't for me. This person is a threat, right? Because when I am with secure people, I don't get activated. But even in recent years, when I'm around avoidance, I notice activation in me, and now it's like, oh, red flag, red flag.
Right.
Back
As opposed to
then,
like, I should talk about them more.
yes,
And that'll
right.
somehow magically bring them back or bring
Yeah.
them to the surface.
Right. So that was like a huge aha for me in recent years, that just because I'm thinking a lot about someone doesn't mean I actually like them.
Wow.
Yeah. But so let's see. So the way that it like showed up in my body, I shared about my mind, like I couldn't focus. Right? Being able to focus on anything, especially like I've talked about this time where like I was dating someone, and I think my attachment style got even a little bit more anxious after my dad passed away, right? Which would make sense. I just lost a parent. And so I was dating someone shortly after my dad passed away. And I've told the story before where, I texted him and he didn't respond for 17 hours. And we had casual plans. And then I was able to do stuff like see that he had been on Facebook, because Facebook Messenger tells you when the person's last been on. And I could see that he had been on OkCupid, the dating site that we met on. And I felt so embarrassed that I was checking these spots. But I just knew, like, no one in this day and age takes 17 hours to respond, especially when we had tentative plans, right?
Sure.
So I kept getting confirmation that he was alive and he was active on the internet.
He was avoiding.
And he was avoiding. Like, just respond to the text. just say we're not hanging out. Like, it's that easy.
Mm.
And so in that time, but in many times where I would reach out to someone and they wouldn't connect, it felt like hell in my body. And I even gave that one person, their name in my phone was "This is hell." So it
Mm.
reminded me to stop interacting with them because it felt so terrible in my body. And it was just like chronic anxiety, like all through my body, where I couldn't sit still, but I also couldn't really move. And there was just a lot of like unrest in my body, and there was a lot of just my mind trying to figure out how to problem solve the problem, just wanting to understand. And um there was like nothing I could do, right, to like fix it. So I would try taking walks and I would talk to friends, and I used to journal a lot to try to make sense of all of this. But really sometimes it got so bad where I would have to take like an anti-anxiety, to just stop the discomfort, right? But what made it even worse was that during all of that, the judgment I put on myself,
Mm.
right? Because I would say, like, this is just a stupid guy, or it's just a text, or, like, you already knew he wasn't that into, like I could have the logic pop in, but so the logic would then make me feel more shame and embarrassment that I would get so thrown off for
Mm.
something like a text. But it was deeper than that, because what I was interpreting that was as a threat that I'm not lovable, and that I'm, never going to find anyone. I'm going to live alone the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I could what I feel like I'm hearing is that you've experienced a lot of growth
Yeah.
through the process and a lot of self-understanding and
Yeah.
acquired more, I won't even say more tools, but more ways of looking at what you were going through at that time of your
Yes.
life. And now in a reflective, like in the rear view, you're able to look back at who you were when you were in those avoidant and anxious relationships, right?
Yeah.
That, okay, now it makes sense. But sometimes when you're in the thick of it, right, your anxious mind is telling you, I have to try to make sense,
Yeah.
even if there's no sense to be made.
Right. Right. I mean, that is exactly it. Is that in those moments before I really like knew about anxious attachment, and before I had the tools to really self-soothe and everything, um, I was just trying to understand. I was just trying to understand, and it was so uncomfortable. But once I learned about anxious attachment, and once I learned about attachment styles, and once, I just was able to see myself through a lens of compassion, because physiologically my body is reacting to a threat, and
Mhm.
it is extremely uncomfortable, but there's nothing wrong with me. It's like what my body is designed to do. And for me, that was the height of like, like self compassion or empowerment or whatever. Like, it didn't mean that I wasn't going to experience these like activating strategies,
Sure.
this discomfort. But I had this lens of actually being able to like have compassion for myself in the experience. And so you're right. It's like with knowledge and understanding, it actually transformed the way I could be with myself, rather than escaping through like binge watching TV or taking an anti-anxiety med, or sometimes, I would drink, all of that to try to get rid of the discomfort in my body. Now it's like, wow, this really sucks. Your body's going through this. Like, this is
Yeah.
information. What does my body need? And so that's been like the biggest piece for me, is the the understanding of preoccupied thoughts, and how that ties into my anxious attachment style. I have a lot more self compassion for myself.
Yeah. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're kind of embracing, and I think that's the beautiful thing about the book too, is that it allows you to sort of be like, cool with and say,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay that I'm an anxious attachment, or it's not a bad thing that I'm
Yeah.
this or that I'm that. It's just more information is going to be able to help me to understand more about who I am and my needs. And then maybe there are things I can do to try and be a little bit less anxious or be a little bit less avoidant or, anxious. What was it? The third one that they say is less, not third one, secure is the third one, but it's like anxious avoidant is like
Yeah.
the more rare,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, once you have that self information, it's actually pretty empowering. So,
Yes.
my
Yeah.
question is like, now that you're in a secure relationship, and but you said you still have some moments where like that anxious style comes up, even
Mm-hmm.
though things are much more secure and you're with someone that understands you and knows your worth and you're the most lovable person ever. So it's like so hard for me to imagine, like, how could Abby ever think she's not lovable?
Oh, yeah.
But I do understand because we all look at ourselves as being a certain way, or
Yeah.
and then but when we're reflected and when we're with the right people,
Yes.
and that's not just in our romantic relationships, but when we're with the right types of people that we choose to interact with,
Yeah.
what a difference it can make for people of all styles of
Right.
attachment.
Right. Yeah. No, it's with Dan. I mean, the thing is like right off the bat, like the way we met, I was like, "Hey, I'm anxious attachment." Right? Like I mean, I didn't do that like on our first date, but I definitely said it pretty quickly, like I on our first date, I was looking for signs of avoidant. And if he had any signs, I probably wouldn't have gone on a second date with him, right? Like the book helps you in like looking for different, behaviors that might give information. Um, and I just feel like I am like way more secure in our relationship. Like Dan can go places and I'm not freaking out if he's not texting or
I was just about to
calling.
say, I'm like, what happens if like it takes an hour for Dan to get back to you via
I'm
text?
okay. Like I'm okay
Yeah.
because he has accepted me for who I am and he's always gotten back to me. Right. And so eventually, if he didn't get back to me, I would go spiral through a dark hole of, oh my God, is he
Sure.
okay? But I'm okay with an hour because, whatever he's doing, skiing with friends or whatever he's doing, like he's having fun and that's great. And, I don't think he's going to reject me and abandon me. And I'm okay. And I know he'll get back to me. And he always does. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still have like self-compassion like when I notice like being activated or having preoccupied thoughts, but in regards to my relationship with Dan, like it's very far and like few and far between. Um because we built a strong foundation where, you know, I can say, "Hey, I have anxiety." And he's like, "Okay, I still love you."
I got it. I know what you need. I got you back. Yeah. And so I just I love this as an opportunity for all the warriors out there to sort of reflect on their own experiences with their own
Yeah.
preoccupied thoughts, because we all have them.
Yes.
They are going to be on a spectrum too, kind of like we're both describing. Some of them are going to be a little bit more low key, like, a messy bed, or a locked door that you've locked 1,000 times, but you still feel the need to check. And that's normal.
Mhm.
And then getting a little bit deeper to thinking about your interpersonal relationships and your home
Yeah.
life, your work life, your romantic life. Um, and so think on it a little bit. What does your preoccupied mind need from you?
Yeah.
Or what is it telling you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. What is it telling you? Because it might be driving you nuts, but there's nothing wrong with you. It's showing up because it's trying to give you information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So something to think about this week, warriors.
So, I'm very excited for this win of the week that we're going to talk about. Do you want to share this one?
Yes. So Abby and I Google ourselves sometimes. Or we're really, we are proud of ourselves that we've stepped out of many comfort zones to get this podcast off the ground, and we realize that we're still making very little baby steps and we're learning and stumbling along the way. But I think sometimes we're like, are we even being heard past our own inner
Mhm.
circles and our own little Instafam world? So I had looked up our podcast name just randomly in Google. Like, this was at this point maybe like a week or two ago. I don't remember
Mhm.
exactly, but I saw our name come up in a blog post that was titled "The 60 Podcasts About Anxiety to Watch in 2021." And I was just like, what? Like, are you kidding me right now? So I opened the thing immediately. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I'm just like scrolling through, I'm like, where are we? And so out of 60, we were number 36, which for like a 2-month-old podcast, I was
Woohoo!
like freaking out about this. So I sent the text to Abby immediately, and she was, we were both just like jumping up and down and like
Huge
overjoyed,
win.
and huge win. And
Huge
even
win.
though technically it didn't happen this week,
Yeah.
I did share about it on IG this week. And so
Yes.
it's this week's win of the week, because we've shared it with the world that we've made it onto this little list. And it's just a great reminder, I think, that like things that are considered little sometimes are not that little. And it's
Yeah.
okay to look at, this is why this segment means a lot to us, because it's okay to look at those little things that happen in your day-to-day life and say, that is awesome.
Mhm.
That
We
felt
did
good. That
it.
was a win. And yeah, that means that at the very least, some blogger out there who blogs about podcasts and stuff saw us and decided we're here. We are. We fit. And it kind of, I feel like part of it, and I didn't dive too deep into this blog, but I think some of it has to do with like our Alexa ranking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I know. We're like, maybe how many plays we get or something. And I don't
Ooh.
know. We'll have to dive more into that, into thinking about that. But that is our win of the week. So we did a double, Margot and Abby, a Mabby win of the week.
Yay! And
And we want to hear,
Argo. Sorry,
oh,
now I'm gonna play with our names.
what did I say? I
And
said Mabby
no, I liked
Argo.
Mabby, so I had to like change it,
Mabby Argo. Okay. Let us know which one
Abigo.
works better. Abigo. These are all terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let us know if you want to mash up our names. Maybe you'll come up with some better ones. But we'd love to hear your wins of the week, warriors. Send us an email, anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram, Anxiety Warriors Podcast. Reach out, be part of our fam, and we love you.
Yes. So thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so, so grateful you all are here.
Till next time.